Joining us now, Curtis Ellis, Senior Policy Advisor, AmericaFirstPolicies.org. Curtis has been fighting side by side with me against these disastrous trade deals for 30 years. And he's joining us now on our New Year's Eve show live from New York City. Curtis, great to have you.
Yay, great to be here. Keep up the good fight there, John. You've been fighting ever since you've been fighting on the beaches, in the hedgerows, on the hills. Oh, my gosh.
In the dark alleys.
Dark alleys.
On the border. Right. We've been fighting for higher wages. Tell you where the other thing I've been fighting is Lower Manhattan and the banksters fleecing us in Wall Street. Hey, by the way, can I just ask you something?
Yes.
Did you, when you voted for Trump like me in 2016, well, let's ask Colleen. Colleen, you voted for President Trump, right?
Yes, I did.
Okay, good. I hate to put you on the spot, but I was kind of thought you did because of the sticker you had on your car. So we all voted for Trump. Did we vote? Did you go to the polls and say, well, I am so fired up about voting for Trump. I am so fired up on November 7th, 2016, because Goldman Sachs is going to run the government. I'm fired up, man. Goldman Sachs, they're going to run the Treasury. They're going to run Fed. They're going to run everything. Goldman Sachs is taking over. I can't wait. I will knock people over to get to the polls.
No. That's not what I was thinking at all. No.
I didn't think so, Curtis.
Yeah.
So, okay, we got a lot to cover today. Let's start with, I'm going to go Fed wall shutdown, all right?
Fed wall shutdown. Okay, I'll take a note on that.
Let's start with the Federal Reserve and Jerome Powell.
I haven't been fed yet this morning, though. I just want you to know that I still haven't had breakfast. So, but we can talk about being fed.
Being that you weigh 75 pounds wet, you can probably, it's not like me. If I miss so much as a meal, then bad things happen. I get very irritable.
Bad things happen. You get crabby.
I get very crabby, as you know. Every time I'm with him, he wants to work. I'm like, well, let's eat first. See?
I like to eat. I do like to eat.
Well, but you never gain any. You never gain any weight.
No, I guess not. It's because I'm very careful about what I eat.
Oh, whatever.
I'm careful about what I'm fed. So we're talking about fed. So I'll work fed into this conversation.
Okay, you work
constantly.
fed into it. Jerome Powell. What's
Powell?
Up? Is he a deep stater?
He should be fed to the dogs. That's what I think.
Is he a deep stater?
I like what Alfredo said in the last segment, that Jerome Powell wants to show he's independent. So even though there's absolutely no reason to raise rates, and everybody said he shouldn't raise the interest rates, he's going to show he's independent from the president. He's also going to show he's independent from reason. He's going to show he's independent from his mind. He's going to show he's independent from economic knowledge. He's going to show he's independent from planet Earth and raise rates, even though the market's going wacko and everybody's worried about trade war with China. Mm-hmm. There's plenty of reasons not to raise rates, but there's no inflation, right? Usually the Fed raises rates because, oh, my God, inflation is breaking out, and we've got to break the back of inflation, and the only way to do that is to raise interest rates. There's no inflation. There's markets are jittery, to say the least. A normal person who wasn't independent of reason would say, I'm not raising rates now. But Jerome Powell raised the rates, trying to tank the economy.
Yeah, well, there's no, like Alfredo said, what is the reason other than to tank the economy? Because there's no empirical historical evidence in a low inflation economy that says you want to raise rates. Now, I got 18. I got the first couple because we had quantitative easing and rates were artificially held down. You can't have interest rates at 1% in perpetuity. It doesn't work. So I got the first couple. But the third one I thought was, look, Curtis, I'm not a conspiracy guy, all right? As you know, I never do any of that. You know that. You know me very well. But you have to look at this and say to yourself, is this just another part of the deep state, Goldman Sachs, Lower Manhattan plan to get this guy out?
Well, I've heard on good authority that Steve Mnuchin picked this guy. And that's part of the Goldman Sachs cabal. Steve Mnuchin and Gary Cohn found this Jerome Powell under some rock or under some part of the swamp, the Wall Street arm of the swamp. And so he very well could be part of that. Look, there's a whole bunch of people in Washington and in the deep state that just have this antipathy towards President Trump. They don't like him. They don't think he's really one of us. He's not one of them. And it's like, okay, we'll take his jobs, we'll take his money, we'll take the power he gives us, but we really don't think that, he's us. So we're going to work against him after we get into the White House or get into the Fed or get into wherever we get into. And it would not surprise me at all that Jerome Powell is one of those people. He doesn't seem to be very bright. Let's put it that way. The guy's not very bright. You look at the economy, you look at the markets, you look at what's going on. There's absolutely no reason to be raising interest rates now. And to say, well, I'm going to keep quantitative tightening on autopilot. Nobody keeps anything on autopilot. Every day you can read about somebody who kept their car on autopilot and they got killed. What are you doing putting things on autopilot? If it was on autopilot, we wouldn't need you. We just have a computer run the Fed, you idiot.
Exactly. It's very disturbing to see what this guy is doing with no evidence to support it, no factual reasoning, and so you look at this, and it's another reason to think that Trump is the great disruptor, changing everything. People just are very, very wary of him because he's disrupting the entire status quo. I think you mentioned something the other day that made me laugh. You said, he's pulling everybody's supply chain. And that's so you look at Powell and you say to yourself, okay, the job of the Fed is to stabilize and help grow the economy. And he's doing the exact opposite going into 2020. And you say to yourself, why would you do this?
Exactly.
That's the problem. That is the issue. Okay, let's get to hopefully the president has put enough pressure on him now, and there's enough scrutiny on him where he's going to stop raising rates in the near term in a low inflation environment. All right, Curtis, let's get to funding for the wall. The president asking for $5 billion. The Democrats not wanting to compromise anything. President's already come back with better deals. He had Jared Kushner and his new acting chief of staff, Mulvaney, on the Hill. They're trying to compromise. Pelosi and Schumer say no, government remains shut down. Actually, though, it's a paid vacation. Let's be honest, they all get paid eventually when it reopens. What do you think the president's next move is here? Curtis Ellis.
The president's next move is to keep the government shut down. Nothing's going to happen until Nancy Pelosi takes over. And they'll come to some compromise. Maybe he won't get the Congress will not allocate the $5 billion. But I've heard that there are other ways to fund this wall. That there are loans that the U.S. Department of Agriculture puts out. The U.S. Agriculture Department makes loans for rural development. And they make loans to small businesses. They make loans to farmers, so farmers can buy a barn or something, build a barn, build a watering trough for their cattle. And these loans are always paid back. They're very, very secure loans. They're very worthwhile. So they could securitize those loans the same way Wall Street turned all the crummy mortgages, all the fake liar loan mortgages in 2008 into bonds and raised money immediately. You basically borrowing money, you get money up front against the proceeds of these loans. The president could sign an executive order, from what I understand, and create bonds and get billions of dollars right now. And the $1 billion that he got up front right now would be paid back from the proceeds of these loans that the U.S. Department of Agriculture makes. So you don't even have to go through Congress to get billions of dollars that can be used to make a wall.
Right.
Now, just the threat that he would do that should be enough to make these knuckleheads in Congress come around and actually secure our border.
But Curtis, these are really two separate issues, though, right? One issue is other funding for the wall that the president has access to, whether it be savings bonds, wall bonds, if you will, whether it be taking money out of funds that have been taken from people, drug arrests and things like that.
Right.
Money that he can take from DHS. Because if he does that, there's going to be a lawsuit. There's going to be an injunction.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So we're going to go through that. But the other issue is the government is shut down. And so he's asked for $5 billion. Congress gave him $5.7 billion. That's out. We got a new Congress coming in. Do you think the Democrats are going to say, okay, let's go with 2.9? Right now they're saying, like Schumer said on Friday, you're not getting a dime. So
good
do
luck
what you
with
want.
That. The longer the government shut down and people notice that the sky hasn't fallen and that trains still run and their car starts in the morning, they're going to say, well, who cares? Oh, well, I guess we could get rid of 25% of the federal government. So the Democrats are not holding the high cards in this poker game here. The people already think the government should be cut by 25%. And if 25% of the government's not getting paid and everything, the country proceeds as normal, people perceive the country going on business as usual, they're going to say, oh, there they go again. Democrats, all they care about is the government workers. That's all they scream and jump up and down about. And and now they're screaming and jumping up and down about criminal illegal aliens.
Right.
And the president's going to be very happy fighting this battle.
Okay,
He's got Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer standing up for foreigners who break the law against rather than law-abiding Americans. That's a good standoff. That's a good position to be in.
So let's talk about these migrants. There's another caravan, 15,000 strong, we understand, starting now, and the president has threatened to cut off aid to Honduras and Guatemala because he's upset that they're doing nothing to stop it. So the other thing, so two things, that, and I want to get your comment on this. Do you know that the Mexican government offered work visas to 5,000 people? To 2,000 people. They offered work visas, right? They said, here are work visas. All you have to do is come and apply. We have 2,000 of them. You know how many people applied?
I would say somewhere between 0 and 5.
193.
Oh, well, good.
So the question becomes, you offer 2,000 Mexican work visas and 194 applied, which is about 8%. It was actually like 2,200. 8% of those in the caravan applied for it. Now, they said they're leaving to get a job and for a better future and to get out of harm's way. So the government of Mexico, which has openings, right, because they got all these factories because of NAFTA and whatever, right? They offer them the visas and only 8% of them apply for it. So if they want a job and they want to be safe and Mexico is offering that to them, why don't they apply?
Well,
answer me that question.
And this shows the lies, the mendacity, the BS that passes for news in this country and passes for news analysis, right? And it also shows how phony this whole thing is. If these people were fleeing and were refugees under the definition of international law and wanted asylum, they would claim asylum in Mexico. If they're being persecuted in their home country, they take 5 steps over the border into the next country, which is Mexico, and apply for refugee status in Mexico. The fact that they walked 1,000 miles and they want to go to the United States to claim asylum tells you that it's a phony claim of asylum. They are not being persecuted in their own country. Maybe they're being persecuted by their boyfriend or by their neighbor or somebody else, but that is not legal status for refugee status. And again, like you just said, hey, get a job in Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
We're offering you a chance to work. You want a better life? Work in Mexico. And I'll tell you what, I've been to both of these places. Compared to El Salvador, Mexico is like Beverly Hills.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is a developed middle-class country compared to Guatemala and Mexico and Salvador and Honduras. So they should be, if they want a better life, make a better life in Mexico. But no, that's not good enough. I want a better life in Beverly Hills. I want to be cleaning a house in Beverly Hills, not cleaning a house in Tijuana or working in a factory making cars for Americans in Monterrey, Mexico.
Or I don't want to work at all because they have 2,000 jobs and they have 2,000 work visas, and only 8%.
Maybe they'd rather get food stamps.
They'd rather get food stamps.
In the United States.
That's. I mean, you have to start answering these questions. And who would have ever thought that AMLO, the new president of Mexico, would have become our ally in this? And he's seeing it for himself. Who would have ever thought, right?
Well, I actually thought that, to be quite honest. And we got to make a point here too, that part of the reason these people are coming is because of NAFTA. NAFTA and CAFTA, the Central America Free Trade Agreement, destroyed the economies in many ways in Mexico and El Salvador, Guatemala, Central America. Before we had these crappy free trade deals that aren't free and aren't trade, these people were happy poking a stick in the ground and growing corn, pick a mango off the tree. That's how they lived. And that's how they lived for 1,000 years since the Mayan Empire fell. And what happened is after these crummy free trade deals came in, American corn and American agricultural products, subsidized by the U.S. taxpayer, got dumped in those countries. And it wiped out the farm economy. And these people had no way to live. They could not live. They were living on a cash-free economy, pretty much. But it wiped out all those businesses, wiped out the farm economy, and they had no choice but to come north to look for work.
I got to go. Curtis, spot on, as always. Curtis Ellis, more information, AmericaFirstPolicies.org. Denver Riggleman coming up. Keep it right here.